If you had the opportunity to influence global policy on pet food sustainability today or tomorrow, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Vegan diets are not zero impact, they still have an impact. There have been several studies looking at the environmental impacts of pet food, and they've had some really dramatic results.
How conventional pet food contributes to global environmental issues?
Like fast-growing pet numbers. So in Asia, the numbers of dogs and cats will increase by about 30% in the next 10 years.
Why we need to reduce the livestock farming or sea farming? Okay, if you had a billboard on Times Square for one day, what would it say?
What would the difference be between meat-based and vegan diets? That would be the benefits that you would get if the dogs and cats were to transition.
So I'm moving to sustainability, environmental impact of pet food. So you have talked briefly during the journey, why you started focusing on, advocating about vegan pet foods and why it is environmentally sustainable. So the pet food industry's carbon footprint is significantly, as you said, more, but it's rarely yet discussed anywhere. Not many discuss about the carbon footprint from the pet food industry, right? And can you help us understand how conventional pet food contributes to global environmental issues, right? So that's my first question, to create much more powerful awareness on that. They focus on animal agriculture and in general meat consumption, and why we need to reduce the livestock farming or sea farming, all that, but not on the pet food. So
Absolutely, and there's been this huge blind spot. We have forgotten to consider pets. The animal advocacy movement has wrongly assumed that diet change should be all about human diets only, and we've forgotten the animals. And for an animal advocacy movement, that's really speciesist, that's human-centric, and that's not okay. So there have been several studies looking at the environmental impacts of pet food, and they've had some really dramatic results. One of the major ones was published by Ocken, University of California, Berkeley in 2017. And he showed that in the United States, at least a quarter, maybe up to 30% of the environmental impacts of animal farming was not due to human diets, it's due to pet diets. So that's really huge. So we're talking about a quarter of all the land consumption, freshwater consumption, pesticide and fertilizer use, fossil fuel consumption, and greenhouse gas production, actually not due to human diets, due to pet diets. So as I said, we're missing something really important if we think that we're at home and we have 1 or 2 dogs, we change our own diets and we forget about the diets of our pets. Other studies have shown that the meat consumption of an average dog can be equivalent to that of an average person. For a large breed dog, it can be more. So if we forget the diets of our dogs and we only focus our own diets, it could be that we've missed the major source of the problem within our own households. After these sorts of studies demonstrating the major environmental impacts of the pet food sector, for example, the Ocken study showed that if dogs and cats were their own country, they'd be the 5th largest country in the world in terms of greenhouse gas emissions because of their diets. Nobody had worked out how much benefit would there be if the world's dogs and cats transition onto vegan diets. And I said, well, vegan diets are not zero impact, they still have an impact. What would the difference be between meat-based and vegan diets? That would be the benefits that you would get if the dogs and cats were to transition. So I set to do that in a major study that I published in 2023. Back in 2018, when we had good global numbers of dogs and cats, there would be 7 billion land animals no longer killed in the food system if the world's dogs and cats transitioned. Today, it would be more than 7 billion land animals being saved from slaughter each year. There'd also be billions of fish and marine animals no longer killed also. We would save staggering amounts of greenhouse gases if all their dogs were to transition. It would be 1.5 times the greenhouse gases produced by the United Kingdom. There would be vast savings of land and freshwater. If humans were to transition, by the way, I did this for comparison, the land savings would be land larger than Russia, the world's biggest country, combined with India, which would all become available for reforestation, carbon capture, and biodiversity increase. Vast savings of food energy. So if all the dogs were to transition, you could feed 450 million additional people, which is bigger than the whole of Europe. If all the humans were to transition, you could feed 5.3 billion additional people with the food energy savings, which would be 2/3 of the current population of the Earth. And on top of that, all these calculations are conservative. The true numbers are probably even more. The pet food sector is becoming more important because of growing pet numbers around the world, like fast-growing pet numbers. So in Asia, the numbers of dogs and cats will increase by about 30% in the next 10 years. So this sector is already important in terms of the environmental impacts and the potential benefits, but it's going to become even more important as pet ownership increases as well.
A huge impact environmentally if we do to transition the pets to eat more sustainable and vegan food. I mean, one household at a time. If you look at it, that the impact, as you mentioned, the percentage is skyrocketing in terms of how much land we save. Wow, that's amazing. I hope a lot of people understand the impact and start transitioning their pets as well to more vegan food.
Yep, and for many of us, we have already thought about sustainable transport, and we will cycle to work if we can. We get electric cars if we can afford those, and we can have charging points for them. We often don't have the option to do more. We don't have the option to change where we work necessarily that easily, to change the houses that we live in. We can do limited amounts. We can install heat pumps.
Solar.
But we can't wholesale transform the built environments, the transportation systems, fossil fuel production, consumption. But we can change our diets really easily. In comparison, it doesn't require new technologies, major financial investment. It often saves money, actually. So, but there is one thing that most of us have forgotten, which is that we can also do this for our dogs and cats. So it's another sort of low-hanging fruit. It can have a major positive impact. Also for the health of your dogs and cats sometimes as well. But it's also achievable. It's something that we can achieve now with the availability of these diets that you can order from online suppliers. So yeah, it is a really exciting era, and I hope that people will become aware of this and see those benefits in their own lives.
The pet food industry is receptive of this change. How far you've seen that? Yeah, I mean, while a lot of vets have started their own company based on their research to actually start bringing up, I mean, or probably producing more vegan pet foods, but then in general, the existing pet food industry.
Well, there is a couple of trends, competing trends. So one is resistance to the rise of vegan diets. Companies producing meat-based pet foods. The biggest companies are making more than $1 billion each year from selling meat-based pet foods, and to some degree, they see alternatives as a threat to their products. On the other hand, the pet food industry is aware of the increasing number of pets around the world and the growth in the future. There's also increasing competition from humans for the same ingredients, with the growing human population and the increase in consumption of meat and dairy around the world as developing world consumers change their diets and consume more meat and dairy. So they're concerned about the security of the supply chain of their ingredients in the future, and they're considering diversifying their ingredients partly to address that. by using more plant-based ingredients, they can also lower the environmental impacts of their companies, their businesses, which helps them to meet environmental sustainability goals for their businesses. So there are these two trends. There's a trend of some companies and some parts of companies wanting to resist these diets, and other companies and other parts of the same companies might well be trying to develop them actually and invest in this area. And we've seen a couple of the small vegan pet food companies be bought up recently by the big multinational companies, which is a good and a bad thing. The good thing is that they've got much bigger distribution networks and marketing budgets, and they can help bring these to many more consumers, which is great actually. So, what I'd like to see is the pet food industry making a big investment, a wholesale change toward more animal-friendly and environmentally friendly diets, particularly these vegan and also cultivated meat-based pet diets as they're being developed. That would be great. I think they are mostly driven by profit. They will go where they think the money is. And part of this argument is that consumers are increasingly concerned about diets which produce good health outcomes and are good for the environment. And so there is a market actually for diets that do those things, and that's nutritionally sound vegan diets.
True. Yeah, I think it's same as the meat production for human consumption, as right. So it's yeah, it's always they follow the where the money comes and not looking at the impact on the environment or probably the sustainability angle as well, right? Because it's more of a ESG goal, but how many are really not really just to meet the goal and then submit their financial report. So
Yeah, I guess I think our role is to try to help consumers learn about all this information so that consumer demand will increase, and then companies will respond by providing products so that they can sell them and make money to cater to that consumer demand. And then more products will be available, and that will make it easier for people. And we know that convenience is one of the important factors when people are making purchasing decisions. If products are really easy for them to get, then it helps them to make the right choice. So this will reinforce this whole virtuous cycle, and we'll get movement in the right direction.
got it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a very large market to actually cater to, because as you say, the number of pets are going to increase exponentially, and because every household today, whether they have kids or not, they have pets.
There were, and back in 2018, there were 471 million pet dogs in the world and 370 million cats. So this is huge, and the numbers are just going up. As developing world consumers get more disposable income as those societies develop, and I'm thinking particularly 3 billion people in Asia, India and China and other countries, then they've got more money to spend on pets, so pet ownership is rising.
But have you also looked at, in your studies, this is one of the question I have is, while we are talking about pet as such, but what about the animals which are actually, I'm not, after I became vegan, the one thing which I don't contribute is consciously to aquariums or to zoos, right? More, I would spend time in a rescue animal sanctuary than somewhere in zoos. But how do you think people should be aware of, or probably we should create awareness in terms of, let's say, there is a lot of alligators or probably crocodiles in some of the parks, and some of the wild animals, they are captured in some of these zoos. They cater the food, the meat is being used for them. So how much percentage is contributed towards that, and how do we uh, change, or what is your message to on that front?
Yep. Companies have been developing nutritionally sound vegan diets for dogs and for cats, but not really for other species yet. And I guess that's because compared to the numbers of pet dogs and cats and the commercial market for dog food and cat food, the numbers of alligators and crocodiles in rescues and other animals is really tiny. So the companies don't see a market there that they can make money from. So they haven't been developing those diets. People working in those areas try to meet their animals' nutritional needs via mixed diets. They'll provide meat from, from abattoirs, along with various other fruit and vegetables and supplements mixed in, depending on the zoo animal species that they're trying to feed. As I say, vegan diets developed for these animals. There's no theoretical reason why you couldn't achieve a nutritionally sound diet for the same reason that applies to dogs and cats and humans. These animals don't require any particular ingredient. They require a set of nutrients. And if you supplied a diet that had all the appropriate nutrients for an alligator or any other animals, then it would be fine. The other things are to make sure the animals recognize it as food, would enjoy eating it.
Yeah, I think if they're out in the wild, if they're on their own, they're hunting and do eating food is more of a natural process, because people generally the main useless argument I've heard even from a vegan for a human diet is, hey, we are born a hunter, and we we have canine too, then we have to eat meat and all sorts of nonsense, right? But I think if the animals are not captivated or probably captured and kept in captivities in a setup like zoo, they would be out in the wild, and then they're eating on their own. And sometimes, as you said, there are times of starvation because of the non-availability of food, because you can't keep searching for food all the time. Like that same happens in the jungle. So yeah, so you can't compare that to something in captivity.
Absolutely. There was a wonderful debate between myself and another veterinarian in the main veterinary news journal earlier this year, in which he put forth interesting theories, such as humans were naturally hunters, and when we transitioned into agriculturalists, we suffered brain shrinkage. He also claimed that climate change was a myth, and various other ridiculous points, and therefore dogs and cats needed to be fed meat. It was all very humorous. I thanked him for his wisdom and managing to find a reality completely contrary to all the scientific evidence in the field, and look forward to his further insights next time. And he got very upset by this, and then published an even longer response, to which I did a similar kind of reply, and it was extremely funny. And I had vets writing in saying, I do hope the editor allows this to continue, because that was hilarious. And I think this, and I had most of the vets in the UK reading this and sort of actually learning all about the issue at the time, because I summarised all the key scientific evidence within these responses. So if you provide a dry set of facts, it may all be correct, but it's not necessarily going to be interesting enough for listeners to listen to, or viewers to read. But if you package it up within humour, such as occurred on this occasion, I think I had everybody reading it. It was hugely enjoyable, actually, and I think my opponent got extremely upset, actually.
I'll put that interview in the description when we publish this.
All right, so I've got a website, sustainablepetfood.info, and I think it's under the section on debates at the top of the webpage. Anybody's interested in finding that.
I think we've talked a lot on the sustainability, but I think many people struggle with small steps, right? So especially when it comes to mindset in the sustainability, or starting something more sustainable. So what's your personal habit or lifestyle choice which you've adopted, seems small but made a meaningful difference?
I don't think the major things that I'm involved in make small differences. I think they make big differences.
Yes.
I was actually asked this for an interview recently, and I said, I'm going to go out on a limb and say something really controversial and maybe not very popular. And I'm going to say that the biggest positive impact most people can have is to actually have fewer children, because the biggest environmental impact that most people have is simply producing another human, actually. That's the first thing. And then the second thing I think is probably our diets. And then after that is things like transportation. When we're talking about dietary change, as I've said, it's no longer just about human diets. We need to recognize that the diets of our dogs and cats may have as much impact as our own, actually. And transitioning them to vegan or cultivated meat-based diets when they become available. But, they're not really available in most places yet. So vegan diets for now.
Yeah. I liked your steps, or some of the mindful changes in order in the sequence what you said.
Yeah. So, the recommendations. What recommendations would you give for achieving more sustainable lifestyles? And well, really, logically, it's birth control, isn't it? It's a big one. It has to be for most people. Yeah.
True. I if Japan hears it, they're going to be definitely upset because they are declining already on the birth rate. Or
Yeah.
even China, for at least they have to control, but Japan is going the opposite.
Yeah. Some countries have passed peak populations and are now declining. As you mentioned, Japan, absolutely.
Before I move to the ethics, I wanted to ask any specific innovation which is happening in the recently in the pet food industry, or in the pet food space, which you're part of, or probably you see your colleagues or friends doing.
Yeah.
You want to share, okay, this could be a breakthrough in the coming years.
I think there will be more cultivated meat-based pet foods becoming available. So we had this one launched in February 2025, the world's first. This is cultivated chicken-based dog treats in the United Kingdom, but it was a single batch, and it probably has all sold out. It was very, very popular. There hasn't been any more. This one is under development in the United States, but it hasn't passed regulatory approval yet. But there is one from the same company, Friends and Family, and it hasn't yet been approved by the US authorities. But they have had another one approved, which is based on a cultivated chicken breed, which is one of the most common chickens consumed in Southeast Asia, and that has been approved in Singapore by the authorities. So they are expecting to launch that later this year. That's exciting. Southeast Asia is a huge area for consumption of meat by people and also by pets, actually. And pet ownership in Asia is expected to increase 300% in the next 10 years. So one of the fastest growing regions in the world. So there will be a huge increase in killing of animals in the food system to feed pets in Asia. So we very much need alternatives such as cultivated meat-based pet foods and vegan pet foods to come in to decrease all of that and decrease the environmental impacts that will come with all of that as well.
If you made it this far, you're clearly into deep, meaningful conversations around health, lifestyle, and the science behind how we live. 60% of people who watch these episodes haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy these insights, my humble request is to please consider hitting that subscribe button. It will help us bring much more curious minds, expert voices, and keep the show going strong. The the cell-based meats, as you talked about, Singapore already have proved in one of the restaurant they're serving for even human consumption, right? So that's the only place where they are.
Yes.
My daughter had a very specific question. I think it's I'll show this recording to her. Okay, still cell-based meat, and she's saying, okay, still are they going to actually kill an animal and and take that, and produce from that cells? But I said no. It's much more sustainable, and you're not really killing any animals. So maybe you want to give a quick answer in terms of how does that cell-based.
It starts with really a single cell, and then you culture that cell so it divides indefinitely and produces more and more animal tissue. The single cell, in the case of the cultivated chicken here, that came from a single chicken egg. And you could potentially use biopsies as well if you wanted to. And that might be another way you might be able to obtain a single cell without harming an animal. Yeah, or something we use in veterinary medicine is called a fine needle aspirate. It's where you use just a single needle to take a cell sample. You probably need a stem cell, or a cell from a chicken egg. That's something to consider. And the important thing is though that I think that surveys have shown that twice as many people are interested in choosing cultivated meat than vegan diets. So it's a very popular alternative, and the potential benefits in terms of reducing the killing of farmed animals are staggeringly large. As I've shown with my other studies, and the potential environmental benefits are massive. If there was an option not to use a single cell, then even better. But there isn't. There isn't. So, most options in life are not perfect. Even vegan diets involve some killing of animals, because when crops are harvested in the fields, some animals may get squashed by the machinery, insects and things like that. The clearing of forests to make space to grow those crops harms other animals. There is not a zero harm option. There is the
Reduce the harm. Yeah,
the objective is to minimize the harm,
minimize.
not to eliminate the harm completely. That's not usually possible.
How do you think? Do you think all the veterinary schools or the universities where they're teaching is already incorporated such sustainable, food production or ethical way of, doing things in their curriculum, or do you think you're advocating for it, or how far it has reached in terms of bringing it part of the curriculum across the globe, or even maybe at least in different countries?
Sustainability is becoming a bigger concern for the veterinary profession. It's something that's discussed quite commonly within the United Kingdom, where I'm based. Within the United Kingdom, most of the veterinary community are now aware that these nutritionally sound vegan diets exist and that there is good evidence to support their use. Animals fed these diets normally have health outcomes which are as good or better than those fed meat. That's because I've managed to get a lot of stories and letters in the debate section of the veterinary journals in the United Kingdom. So awareness is low in most parts of the world. That these diets exist and about all the scientific evidence showing the benefits of them. So there is an awful lot of work to do in terms of communication and outreach.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that's true. I know it takes a lot to, it's while every drop counts. So there's much more drops we need in the ocean to actually make a change or make ripples.
If we all did as much as we could, we'd see a huge impact, and we would probably sweep away the opposition. But it needs to be much more than just me and a small group of people helping me a little bit.
So outside of the academic journals and the conferences, right? So any books, documentaries, or any mentors who has shaped your ethical outlook? Any examples or books, documentaries you want to point out? And your mentor, or probably who you look up to from on this journey?
I didn't have any particular mentors when I was young. I read books like Lord of the Rings, and they were all about the battle against evil and heroes trying to do the right thing. And I picked up a lot of my values when I was a teenager from reading books like that. Actually, I thought for myself, and I encourage everyone to do that. I think that's probably the most important thing in life. Think for yourself. Think about the choices available to you. Don't just believe everything that comes your way across social media or other information sources. Actually critically assess ideas and the information that comes to you, and just try and think. Above all, just think. Don't unthinkingly accept ideas as they come your way. Do think about the choices available to you and what you're going to do with your life and what sort of person you want to be, how you can have the most positive impact and do the least harm during your time upon the planet.
Yeah, I think I repeat this like a broken record, a lot of in my conversations about ikigai. So if you really have a purpose, you just find out what is the purpose in your life, and do that soul searching exercise and try to work towards it, right? So of course, you, as you said, thinking about the values and what you want to actually leave as a legacy, or that's very important.
Yeah, it's about what sort of person do you want to become? Do you want to grow into being? What sort of opportunity do you want to make with your life? You've been given time upon the planet. What will be your story? What do you want to do with it? What sort of person do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? These are the things to think about.
So, in terms of the policy and the research gaps, or probably your future vision, I have a question. If you had the opportunity to influence global policy on pet food sustainability today or tomorrow, what would be your top three priorities?
Obviously, I would want policies that encourage the uptake of pet foods, which are good for animals and the environment, and that's companion animals, but also farmed animals. So that would be clearly nutritionally sound vegan diets, but also cultivated meat-based diets. And the vegan diets would include diets based on microbial proteins, grown with almost no land, water, organic inputs. Super efficiently. This may be the future of food. We need to subsidise the production of these diets, and the money should come from taxes. The taxing of products that are harmful to animals and the environment. And that's currently the production of farmed animal produce, so meat, eggs, and dairy products. These are very harmful, obviously, not only to the farmed animals, but have major adverse environmental impacts as well. Currently, the companies producing and profiting from all of those products don't pay taxes to help clean up the environmental damage that they're causing. Instead, they get public subsidies. They get a lot of public monies. That's obviously wrong. That obviously needs to be changed. So I think in terms of policy, that's something that is the right thing to do. Would have major public benefits for the future, for our environment, and that's clearly something that should be done. Land animal farming produces probably 25% or more of all greenhouse gas emissions. And there's the biggest cause,
emission is also, yes.
biggest cause of deforestation on the planet, and about the serious adverse consequences. Currently, we aren't doing that on a large scale. It's left to the non-profit sector, who are pretty poorly funded compared to the governmental, compared to the state education system, or compared to for-profit corporations. It's left to non-profits to do this as best they can, and they do this in an ad hoc and poorly coordinated fashion, and a severely underfunded and under-resourced fashion. So that's something that should be addressed by policymakers as well. It would do a lot of more good than perhaps any other policy intervention.
I think subsidy and taxing the harmful products, it's a very, very powerful, important one to look at from a policy standpoint.
Yeah.
Any unexpected result or surprising result you've encountered in your research journey? Something you didn't anticipate, but that came out as well, during the research?
I guess two things. One is the environmental benefits of nutrition and vegan pet food were staggeringly large. I did not expect them to be that large. And this would change the face of
the pet food production.
Dramatically change the adverse environmental impacts of the food system if our dogs and cats were to transition. The second thing is the health benefits. I thought the health outcomes would be equivalent. I did not expect to see studies from leading veterinary schools showing that dogs fed vegan diets were living the equivalent of an extra decade, and that this was a statistically significant difference. So not simply random variation in the samples, but probably a true biological difference. I didn't expect to see benefits like that. So that was very exciting when we've had that, and the other health benefits come from multiple studies as well. So yeah, but I guess those are the unexpected things that I've seen.
Interesting. Yeah, that's true. Nice to hear. What's next in your in terms of your research or advocacy projects in the sustainable pet food space, or in general, right? Looking at probably if we sit together after a year or 2 year, right? What's something new which I would like to hear?
We have multiple more research studies coming, which will be published in scientific journals as well. These are all available, open access, so freely available on the internet. One of those will be an economic study. We have already calculated, for example, that if dogs and cats are fed a vegan diet, they will need a certain percentage less medication, be ill a certain percentage less, need to visit vets less. But we haven't calculated yet what that means in dollars. How much money is that going to save pet owners? So there should be a significant saving there, given that all of those things decrease when animals are fed nutritionally sound vegan diets. So I'd like to actually study that and work out what a difference that would make financially for pet owners as well. And I suppose the other thing that I'd like to be doing is a lot more communication. We now have these diets. We have a really good evidence base demonstrating the benefits and shedding light upon those. But 99% of the pet owning world remains completely unaware of these two things, of the new diets and of the evidence, because it's so new. It's only occurred in the last 3 or 4 years. So we need a lot more outreach to pet owners, to veterinarians, to the pet care communities, even to the pet food industry. And I'd very much like to be doing that and to be working with other people to do more of that, because we need so much more than just one person doing this.
True. No, I agree with you. That's very important, and love to see that, especially on the economic impact. That it's a vital information for us, for the policymakers to also do some changes. It's true.
If you made it this far, you're clearly into deep, meaningful conversations around health, lifestyle, and the science behind how we live. 60% of people who watch these episodes haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy these insights, my humble request is to please consider hitting that subscribe button. It will help us bring much more curious minds, expert voices, and keep the show going strong.
Okay, I think with that, I have covered all my questions in quest of the knowledge on this space. And the last segment is the rapid fires, asking a couple of questions, which is specially curated by my daughter.
How will you know if your pet likes or dislikes vegan pet food?
I think you can tell if your dog or cat enjoys vegan pet food by some pretty obvious behavioural signs most of the time. Things like whether they appear enthusiastic about the food, whether they approach the food bowl rapidly, if they're a dog, if they jump up and down and bark and wag their tail, if they like eating the food instead of leaving the food uneaten. Cats seem to do a lot more sniffing and licking and sort of being suspicious of new food. So it's not really difficult if you've lived with your pet for very long to be able to work out by their body language what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. What we have found when we've done large-scale studies of thousands of dogs and cats is that by studying their behaviour in detail when they're offered different kinds of food, we found that on average there's no significant difference between how much they seem to enjoy vegan pet foods and meat-based pet foods.
What inspired you to research and advocate for vegan pet food?
I was a veterinarian in small animal practice treating dogs and cats, and I'd always been interested in vegan pet diets. It was supposed to be common knowledge that dogs and cats couldn't be healthy on vegan diets. And I went looking for the evidence, and the scientific evidence to back this up. I found no studies actually demonstrating that, but I accidentally found more than 10 studies showing that dogs and cats maintained on meat-based diets, commercial meat-based diets, long-term, often developed various health ailments. So that was interesting, but I didn't get time to research this in great detail until really 2020, when I got a research grant for the first time that enabled me to spend time on this issue properly. And then I started doing studies looking at the health outcomes of thousands of dogs and cats maintained on these diets, and in particular what the environmental benefits were. We had always known that a transition toward more sustainable lifestyles, and in particular plant-based diets, was necessary to address environmental degradation, climate change, biodiversity loss. But we hadn't realised that that might also apply to the diets of our dogs and cats. So the most important study that I did was the one I published in 2023, when I said, okay, we've shown now that these animals can be healthy on vegan diets. What might the environmental benefits be? And that's when I calculated some amazing results, such as if all the world's pet dogs were to transition onto nutritionally sound vegan dog food, it would free up more greenhouse gases than produced by the entire United Kingdom. 1.5 times as many greenhouse gases would be spared. There'd be vast savings of land and fresh water, and huge savings of food energy, meaning that you could feed millions of additional people. If all the dogs went vegan, you could feed 450 million additional people with the food energy savings, and that's bigger than the entire population of Europe.
First thing you do when you wake up.
Have breakfast.
As simple as that, yeah. One myth about vegan pet food you wish could vanish overnight.
One myth: animals, dogs and cats are carnivores. They must eat meat. This is not correct. They need a certain set of nutrients, not meat or any other ingredient.
Oh, and one more similar question is, what's a myth about the vegan pets that makes you smile because it's so outrageous?
Dogs and cats do not enjoy unnatural ingredients. As a matter of fact, we know that they love things like French fries, dairy milk, all sorts of ingredients that are completely unnatural to them.
Yeah,
Pizza, cake,
pizza. Yeah, yes. Nobody wants to listen to that, right? They are they've closed ears for that, all that, and then what they want to hear, they'll hear. The most bizarre argument you've ever heard against plant-based diets for pets.
When humans transitioned from being hunter-gatherers to agriculturalists, we suffered brain shrinkage. And dogs and cats will also be harmed by changing from carnivorous diets to plant-based diets. That is as insane as denying the existence of climate change, which that author did in the same letter to the editor.
Yeah, I think that those people should have a reality check and probably read news at least.
Yes.
I think it's getting warmer, and I don't know which world they are in. I think last couple of weeks has been hotter in the United Kingdom too.
Absolutely, it's and in the Arctic at the moment there was a town in the news today which was in the Arctic Circle, and it's 31 degrees there. So it's never been anything like that hot. That was the hottest recorded in history. These sorts of extreme heat events are happening more and more in many more places around the world, and there are so many potential consequences, but the big one is the melting of glaciers and the long-term rise in sea levels, which is going to transform the geography of our planet.
A vegan meal you'd recommend to someone who swears they will never enjoy vegan food?
For a person or for a pet?
Maybe you can give both.
For a person, I would take them to one of the good vegan restaurants that exist in major capital cities. There is a gourmet vegan restaurant where I'm now based in Bournemouth in the United Kingdom, which is just incredible. My only complaint is that the dishes are a bit too small, but indescribably good food. For dogs and cats, there are various additives. There are various additives which they seem to love, and there's a list of them on my website, sustainablepetfood.info. If people are struggling to transition animals onto vegan diets, then there are things that can be added that pets seem to enjoy, such as vegetable oil, nutritional yeast, spirulina, nori flakes, gently warming the food, smelly food. Sense of smell is really important for dogs and cats.
If not veterinary science, what other career would you have pursued?
I mean, I was a teacher for a long time. I was a lecturer, so that was great. I think law is probably something that I would have pursued. I would like to be a legal advocate.
Started with activism, yes. Yeah.
Being a legal advocate for animals and the environment.
One word people close to you would describe you.
Hardworking.
Okay. I can see that definitely from the amount of research and the hard work you've put in to make sustainable pet food reach across globally. Yeah. A guilty pleasure snack. Don't know whether it will be guilty, but maybe you would like it because being a vegan. That's surprisingly vegan.
Tofuti cuties. They're chocolate ice cream biscuits, which are entirely vegan and they're delicious.
If you could redesign the global pet food industry from scratch, what's the one thing you would eliminate on day one?
Meat.
Perfect. High five. Your favorite vegan treat to share with your pets? The cutie?
Sadly, we don't have pets. We live in a high-rise block of flats,
Okay.
and we don't have.
I mean, probably with the pets that comes to your vet clinic.
I mean, there are so many. There are these sorts of treats, cultivated meat-based dog treats. There are so many. I don't have a particular one.
Your favorite place on earth to disconnect and recharge?
Definitely the beach.
Right. Yeah, I think you said you started with that when we talked offline.
Yeah, yes, I
You
did.
love the new place for sure. I think hopefully you make that permanent.
Yeah, most Australians live close to the coast, and I was raised in Australia near the sea, and I love the beach and the sea. Yeah.
Okay, if you had a billboard on Times Square for one day, what would it say?
Be the best you can be. How will you achieve that?
Yes, that's right. Cool. I think with that, we are at the end of our conversation, and it's such a interesting conversation, and I had so much fun and pleasure listening to you and learning from the subject and trying to share this to the audience, and also take some of the inputs what you have given to see how we can spread to the world. Powerful, and thanks for sharing those, Andrew, and thanks for being on my show.
Thank you very much for having me, and I hope if some of your listeners might be interested in helping me to reach out to pet owners and educate the pet owning world about these new diets and about the benefits that they can offer.
Absolutely. Yep. Everyone would definitely love to, and I would love to for sure. And we will talk offline more. And
Thank you.
all right. Thank you so much, Andrew. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
If you liked this conversation, please hit the like and subscribe button to get the latest updates from my channel, Catalog with Naga. Thank you so much.